here right is your job management. And the reasons, the explanation is absolutely correct. But just wanted to correct one thing on Abhishek, that the hierarchical structure is not a criteria here. It's the difference between position and jobs. That is what define criteria. Now, Workday has two staffing models. One is position management, one is job management. And why two? Because this particular staffing model allows you to have more control on each and every position that is being created in the organization. And in this particular visual, we see these are multiple different positions. This can be a software developer hired in Chicago who is a full-time salaried employee. This person can be a data analyst hired in Ontario, an hourly employee with some more characteristics. Likewise, each of them has their own hiring restrictions, has their own job profile, different location, can be part of different management, like different managers as well. But when we come to job management, we continue to talk about job. And the easiest way to understand is, and not to mix it with position management, is what is your job? I'm a driver. I'm a delivery partner. I'm a recruiter, right? And the example that Methi shared is completely true. Like a director, like you cannot have 20 directors opened positions at once. You hire director for different teams to handle, right? Each and every, all 20 directors cannot be managing the same team, cannot be managing the same profile. Each, maybe one director is for engineering, another is for research, another director is for the HR team, another director is for managing people in places, etc., etc. Right? So when it comes to job management, the question asked is, what is your job? Like, I'm a delivery partner, I'm an Amazon delivery partner, or I'm a USPS driver, right? So in that case, everyone in this particular staffing model in job management has the same roles and responsibilities, are hired for the same location, getting the same salary, maybe not, but definitely under one organization. In this case of position management, this particular employee can be reporting to a different organization versus this one. But in this case, all of them are reporting to one organization. Obviously, you can have someone as a manager here. Let's say this employee is a manager. They will have more employees under it, but those all employees will also have basically same hiring restrictions. Now, with that understanding, if I go back to our presentation, there's another visual which we can completely relate to, which is this, right? Now, on to the right-hand side, you see two visuals. Let's leave the theory part, which is the pointers on there. Just focus on the right-hand side, two pictures here. Over to the top, you see here, we in the Workday ecosystem, please make a note of this when I say this. Please make a note which says position is equal to chair. You can have a note of this, something, one second, is something like this. This position is equal to the chair. Right. And another note would be job is equal to is your responsibilities. So with that note in hand, let's come back. See here on the top picture, there's one table which has about eight different chairs. Though all the chairs are same, but each of these positions can be managed individually. So each and every positions might or might not have a different profile working for it. Obviously, different people sitting in it. and each of them have different roles and responsibilities. But over here in the picture below, it's an open space. Basically, kind of you can visualize this as a warehouse. You can fit as many people as the space allows. Hiring in bulk is easier. Like if you're like Methi said, hiring 20 recruiters, makes sense. You can do that, right? But you need to keep in mind that those 20 recruiters will have the same profile, same location, and they'll be hiring maybe for a same team. It's not like they can be located in different locations, right? So, and why we have two different staffing models, the most common question is why? Like, why can't we just have one? Because based on what organization you're working with, what business model your organization works with, or even if take an example of Amazon, Amazon has all types of employees. They have warehouse workers, they have delivery partners, they even have the core technical team who manages the website or the application. They have all types of team. So they definitely use position management and job management. But for organization like, let's say we talk about USPS, they also have their tech team, they also have their internal team, but most of the organizations, most of the employees in that organization are the delivery people, right? So you hire them in a bulk, you keep a very generic requisition open for a long time that we need drivers. The job requirements are pretty wide open. It's not like you have to have a particular degree or some level of education to get that job. All you need to have is a valid driving license and no criminal record, right? But when it comes to position management, if I'm hiring for a director level, there are a lot of things that we need to look into. What domain they have experience into, do they even have experience managing teams, or even how many experience they are into, right? So with all that discussion, now coming to the pointing, like to the points here, in position management, like we discussed, you have most control on each and every position. A position is created to be filled by one worker. Only one, and one worker can sit in one chair. There is one scenario where you can have multiple people sitting in that chair, but by multiple, I mean two people is only when, let's say, one person is leaving the organization in a month or 2 months' time, and you already have someone selected for that role. So if and only if this position allows overlap, which is an option in the system to allow a position to overlap, what that does is it allows two people sit in that chair for that temporary period until one leaves the organization. This is also called as sitting in the lab. Like that person, new person will be sitting in your lab if you're leaving the organization. So you'll be training them, giving all the knowledge transfer needed for that role to be taken care of. Only in that case. Third point, position must be approved and available. Each of these chairs that you see on the top right image followed an approval process and then was added into this room. In case of job management, you just need approval once that you need 20 employees. You don't say 20 chairs, you say 20 employees. But in case of position management, you said that you need 2 new chairs or 2 new employees being hired, right? Fourth point, a chair can be empty or filled, must be available to bring someone in. Very important point, combining into the last point, a chair has its own characteristics. Let's go back to our visual again. In case of position management, let's say this particular data analyst leaves the organization, right? Now you have this position available to have someone sit on it. Not necessarily that person has to be a data analyst. Now you can change the characteristics of the chair, which is in the last point. A chair has its own characteristics. Yes, those characteristics were of data analysts, that particular location, and other hiring restrictions. Now you can change those. You can open this position for a software developer or for a business analyst. And based on what you change it to, the person will be hired accordingly. But again, we'll have to follow through some approvals, not all, but some. And you can also close this position. If this position is no longer needed, you can just close this. That brings your headcount to 5. For that, let's say all of them are in the same organization, that brings your headcount to 5. But when we come to job management, if this one goes, we don't worry about the headcount. We just worry about that we have one less person to do the job. If even that is needed, then you don't have to go through the approval process and get a person hired. All you do is continue to hire. Like, just once you have, just hire. You don't have to decide or change any characteristics because all of them have the same characteristics. But in this case, if you have to add in a new position, you'll have to go through a completely, like, the whole approval process again. So you have more control. You can change the characteristics. You can decide what happens when a person leaves the organization, what happens to that position, not to the worker, but to the position, right? You can transfer this. Let's say this employee is now part of a different organization. You can move this person along with the chair they are sitting in case of position management. Let's say if I move this person to a different organization, that's gone. Transferring this. In case of this, there is nothing like transfer or anything. If this person is gone, then it's gone from here. You'll have to hire this person again in a different organization. Though there are transfers also in job management, but those are not very straightforward. So I've not seen organizations even doing that. So based on how your business decides whether they want to use position management or job management or a combination of both, but they practically there are not many interview questions on this. Also, they might not be even discussing what position management and job management is in an interview, but as an HCM consultant, you should know what is position management, what is job management. Okay. And there's a difference in when you do hands-on, there's a difference on if a organization is based on position management or job management. Okay. Now coming back to, we just go through these points real quick on job management. Job management allows you more flexibility and speed. Yes, you have to hire 20 drivers. You don't need a specific skill set. You just need a generic specifications on that, right? Hiring restrictions are set on the entire org. Exactly. In case of position management, each of these positions has its own hiring restrictions. In case of job management, this complete warehouse workers will have the same restrictions. That's why the restrictions will be set on the warehouse, basically your supervisory organization, not at individual level. No defined quantity for a number of jobs available. That is true, but let's say if you are the senior or like the lead in a lead role for the warehouse workers, then definitely if you have requirements to hire a lot of people, you do give some amount of number, like an approximate number that I need like 50 drivers for this particular time, or, you know, for my organization to work smoothly. So you do get approval to 50 employees, but that does not mean that you have to hire 50 employees at once. You can hire 5-10 in a week, and then you can stop your hiring for, like, basically pause your hiring for some time, then go back and add more. So unless you hire all those 50 people, you don't need to get approvals every time you have to hire people. But in case of position management, there are approvals for every hire. Like, there's a process you follow for every hire. So that was the primary understanding and difference between position management and job management. Staffing models determines the process, approvals, and restrictions for opening and closing positions. That determines what happens to a position when it is vacated. You can either transfer it, you can close it, or you can open it with new restrictions to hire someone. Position management staffing models is set for each supervisory organization. Now, if you recall, when we created our company, when we created our first supervisory organization, right? In that case, we did set the model as position management. You can change that to job management, that's okay, but that inherits. Anytime you create a subordinate for any following organizations, they will inherit the position management. You can change that to job management. I'll show you how that is done. Oh, this is what I was talking about, inheritance. So if this supervisory organization, which is customer support, it's based on position management. The organizations here inherit. Support operations, support center will also inherit that staffing model, and it flows down. Now in here, it says that the support EMEA and the support APAC, which is in yellow color, can be overridden. You can change the staffing model until a certain level, like not the organization level, but until a certain point. With the point of that is you don't need to have a position created or set the hiring restrictions. For position management, if you create a position in an organization, you cannot change it back to the job management model. In case of job management, if you have set the hiring restrictions, you cannot change it back to position management. So that's that trigger. If you have not set any hiring restrictions for job management model, or if you have not created any position in a position management model, you can switch the staffing model based on your requirements, which we'll definitely do a demo.
You mean to say before starting hiring, once we start hiring, we cannot change it. Am I right?
Correct. Exactly. It's basically like just one step before the hiring. If you do that step, then you're not also able to change. And that step is basically create position in position management or set hiring restrictions for job management.
Job management. Yeah. Thanks.
Few more discussions on position management. It provides the greatest control over hiring. That's why a lot of organizations have, at least the core team of any organization who runs the business are mostly based on position management, because you cannot have CEO or CFO or CTO as a job management model. Because like I said, using that same example of director, each director has a different roles and responsibility to take care of based on the domain they are working with. Position management, it gives you the ability to define separate hiring rules and restrictions for each position. You must specify the number of positions to fill, which we'll see in the demo. An open approved position is required before you hire, correct, or promote or transfer. You actually need a chair which is approved for it to be used for hiring or promotion or transfer or demotion. Each position you create can have its own definition and hiring restrictions, which we have already discussed. Use it when you need the ability to define each position narrowly based on the hiring location, job requirement, and current needs, and are subject to tight hiring controls. Discussed all that, just a different way of saying it. Yes, Meera, go ahead.
So I just wanted to ask a query that companies will have position and job management both implemented as a part of HCM, or they might have one implemented and one may not.
Workday does not restrict you from using both of them at the same time.
Okay.
But one organization will only be associated with one staffing model.
Okay. Because I've seen something job level and creating a position. So that's the reason that particular query came into my mind.
No, that's absolutely okay. Position management use case. Frank, this is just a use case which we are discussing here. Frank manages a team of customer support specialists in different locations across the globe, where the pay scales, expected job skills and experience, and other requirements of employment vary widely from one position and even from one location to another. In addition, HR requires approval for each position. I think the use case is self-explanatory why we need position management. You need the ability to define each position narrowly based on the hiring location, job requirements, and current needs, and are subject to tight hiring controls. We definitely need position management in this case. Going back to the job management, it provides the least control over the definition of individual positions. One set of hiring restrictions per organization apply to all jobs in the supervisory organization. Now, there can be possibilities that in a particular organization, you can have some employees as drivers, some as senior drivers, etc. But it's not like you are setting those hiring restrictions differently for each job. You can just set it at the organization level, which once we'll do a hands-on, it will become more clear. You don't need to, it does not ask you for number of jobs. Once you start hiring for a job management, you will see that it does not ask you for number of positions, but in case of job management, it does. Particularly useful for organizations that prefer to define broad job requirements and rely on staffing workflow and approvals to control the number of workers in a supervisory organization. Basically, broader job requirements are applicable to some profiles like recruiters, driving partners, etc., not to all levels of organization. With job management, hiring is not limited to a predefined number of openings. Now, in the example which I shared, that the manager got an approval for 50 people to be hired, it can go above and beyond. It can go less than 50 as well. All they have to do is just go to the manager and say that we are hiring more. And if there's a process in place, they might get an approval, because obviously there's costs associated with each and every employee you hire, whether it's job management or position management. But in case of job management, within the system, you don't define how many people you're hiring. You just continue to hire. The second point says you do not need to create a separate open position for each job you want to fill. Correct. You don't create separate positions each and every time you have to do a hire. You just go to the organization, from there you start hiring. In case of position management, you navigate to the position that you have created and then do the hiring. Third point, any hiring restrictions you define apply equally to all jobs in the organization. We have discussed this a lot, that each and every job will be the same. They might be entitled to different profiles, but they will be the same. Moves approval for a new job to the hire process instead of position creation. Once again, moves approval for a new job to the hire process instead of position creation. Okay, this point is a little confusing because there are multiple ways to understand it and multiple angles to it. So let's just skip that for now, and we'll cover this in the demo. A job management use case. Ralph manages a growing team of software application specialists in a startup company and needs the flexibility to hire workers with a wide range of skills, backgrounds, qualifications, and work preferences. And the organization doesn't want to restrict his ability to fill jobs as the right people become available. Due to growing demands for an expanding customer base, Ralph needs to increase the size of his team in the areas of product management, development, documentation, and QA. He meets with his manager to outline his requirements and receives a verbal agreement. Like I said, there's no approval in the system required. It's mostly a verbal agreement to fill 9 additional openings to be allocated as he sees fit. There's no timeline defined, okay, when do we need the hire? As in people applies, they see that this is a particular person who is there, it's a good fit, they just hire it. After several weeks of interviewing, he hires 2 developers and 1 part-time product manager. He still has management blessing to expand his team and will do so as he finds the right people. Because Ralph needs flexibility when hiring, is less interested in filling a narrowly defined position than in assembling a critical mass of employees in the shortest possible time. And HR does not require approval for the position prior to hiring. Job management is appropriate. So in conclusion, you need flexibility when hiring and are less interested in filling a narrowly defined position than in assembling a critical mass of employees in the shortest time possible. So this use case clearly is makes itself eligible for a job management staffing model. Okay, this is a visual, which obviously we'll see once we'll do the hands-on. No need for this. Okay, we have some demonstrations. Select a staffing model. This is a quiz. Okay, this is the next topic. So I'll stop here for now. Any questions on job management or position management?
So while working on position management, do we have to enable or allow job overlap every time?
In case of job management, you don't have a job overlap option. There's nothing called as job overlap. It's only available on position overlap.
Okay. So we have to, predict in, the future conditions, and we have to always allow job, position overlap.
No. It's
Okay.
only,
Whenever
again,
there is a situation.
it's a business decision. If in case a person is leaving the organization, at the time of processing their termination in the system, there's a question that is asked, like there's a process. And that as part of the process, at one of the steps, it is asked you to answer this question. And the question is this position available for overlap?
Okay.
Then only it's a checkbox. If you enable it, then only system will allow you to open that position to hire someone to be sitting in that position for that time until the previous person leaves the organization, right?
Okay.
Again, it's on case to case. If the case is that you don't need anyone to be hired for that position, or you don't even want that position to be open anymore, you also have the checkbox to say close the position.
Got it.
So it's on case by case. It's not like a specific.
Say, for example, if the person is an interim employee, he's just going to be there for some time till they find a replacement, then in that case, position overlap will come in place?
Might or might not. See, position overlap is only possible for positions that already have someone sitting in it.
Right.
Okay, you cannot have a new hire be sitting in a position. Like you can have a new hire overlapping someone, but for that position they are being hired for should be available for overlap. That is only possible if there's someone is sitting there. Right. So
I get that. No, Rohan, for example, if someone is replacing me, I'm leaving the organization. So XYZ is coming to replace me. But that XYZ will not be a permanent replacement for my role. Then what is the scenario, Rohan?
Oh, in that case, if it's only until, but then why you need an interim person if, like, say, you leaves the organization. All right. So you left the organization, you want someone to handle that role until some time, and then they will be, once you have someone already hired for that position, in that case, let's say you're leaving the organization, I'm the interim person, I will be hired for that position, or I'll be transferred to that position, and the position will be made available for overlap. Not that because I'm being terminated, because I will be transferred back to my original state. So in that case, yes, you can mark the position as overlap and have an open requisition on the careers page. And once you find the right fit, you can have that person sit in that chair, and then I can immediately move to my original position. So that is a possibility. You can do that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Connect with the current situation that I'm working. We have early careers where there is no specific specification, and as and when we have bulk hiring, and only after the candidate gets selected, they usually send out to the hiring managers to choose if they need to have consider them in their team. And then later on, once the hiring manager selects, that is how they are deployed to each project. So to some extent, it goes as a job management, and the later stage it goes as position. So how does that work with Workday? I mean, I'm trying to understand how does it change from one situation to another.
So it's absolutely possible to have both, or you can just have one. So like you already identified that this is a clear case of job management until a certain point, right? So once that point is over, you can transfer those people into an organization which is based on position management. But that would be an additional work for you because you will have to hire them again. Because in job management, though there are transfers, but those transfers, like it just does not work like a standard transfer. You will have to open positions and then hire those people into those, right? So instead, a better way would be to just hire them using position management. In that case, even like hiring in bulk is not something that position management is not capable of doing. It's capable of doing that as well. It's just like all of them would be hired as maybe early in career development kind of job profile. Later on, they can be transferred or their job profile can be changed very easily in case of a position management. But in case of job management, you cannot do that. So if I would have been the deciding factor, like if it's in my plate to decide, I'll definitely pick position management in the beginning itself to avoid any extra work later, once like it's decided what role they will fit in and what particular organization they will be going to. Make sense?
I'm still confused. I totally got your point, but I'm trying to think of a scenario where early careers, in the sense we go for campus hiring, and then we offer and select the candidate, but which project they go in and all would be identified later on, and so there is a shift between job management and position management.
Yeah, so to avoid that shift from job management to position management, it's always better to go with position management.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Any other question?
Adding to that, I mean, in the beginning, you're trying to say in the beginning when you're hiring someone, it's always to be, I mean, in a better off in a defining in position management than a job management.
In a sense, yes.
Okay. So what if I hired a person in a job management, I defined, and then later I realized that I did a mistake. But in that case, in that scenario, I mean, what Workday suggests, I mean, is that possible to transfer? You said you cannot transfer them, right?
It's not like you can transfer. See, when it comes to position management, the basic requirement of position management is you need to have a position available.
Okay.
Right? So the additional step which you have to do is, if you can transfer from job management to position management, but you have to create those positions first, to which you will be transferring those employees. It will not be like entirely a new hire, but it will be a partial hire in some sense, because you're creating a position, you're defining the hiring restrictions for each and every position, right?
Okay.
So if you pick one employee from one job management model and move it to a position management, you need to make sure that position is available. All right. And when you transfer that, it internally calls a hire process, that this person is now being hired for this position. Right. So you cannot transfer a person on a job management to a position management. You partially hire a person from a position management to job management. Oh, sorry, from a job management to position management. By creating a new position and then placing that person in that position.
Okay.
So that's why it's additional steps. It is a little tricky. That's why it's always safer you go with the position management in the beginning.
Okay.
if you know there is higher probability that they will be selected for a particular role or for a particular manager or for a particular location.
Okay.
It's always better to go with position management.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Again, Workday does not recommend anything. It's all like the good practices and how the business goes with it.
Say, for example, I'm recruiting 100 GETs and they will be placed in a GET org for 6 months. Once their probation is over, few of them will be appointed as a CAD/CAM engineer. The rest of them will be appointed as ANSYS engineer, for example.
Mhm.
So can I go with job management at the beginning? And then
I think in that case,
once
job
I-
management makes more sense because the quantity of people you're hiring is a lot,
right.
right? And 6 months is not a small time, it's a good amount of time. So, yes, I think job management makes more sense. And once you have the positions defined, and like you said, like few of them will go as a CET engineer or etc. etc. So you can move it accordingly as and when needed.